Good morning, all. Thanks for joining us today. My name is John Heerdink. I'm managing member of Tribe Public. I'm very excited to have all of you from the 25 plus countries. We've continued to grow since we went to this webinar format about a year ago now during COVID, and excited to have one of the companies that the Tribe has asked to have on another event. We've had Dr. Quay and Guse on the call, and now we have Heather, who is head of clinical trials, on the call as well this time. We're very excited to have the three of them, especially on a day like this where we're able to discuss important data that has surfaced through the trials of Atossa Therapeutics. Again, the symbol for Atossa Therapeutics is on the trades on the NASDAQ, symbol ATOS. Many are familiar with them that are on the call today, and we appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, I also run a fund, a registered investment advisor called Vista Partners. If you want to learn more about that, it's at the website vistapglobal.com. And we've been invested in and around Atossa for the last 3+ years. Excited to see the development and the move forward in this space and in breast cancer. And we're looking forward to learning more today too. Remind you again, now that you're part of the Tribe, you can continue to ask for updates from Atossa and other NYSE and NASDAQ listed companies that you care about. That is the theme through our wish list process at tribepublic.com. Thanks again for joining. We have a very large crowd today, and we'll do our best to get the questions that you've kindly been able to forward to us through email. During the event, you may submit additional questions through the Zoom chat feature, and we'll do our best to get this done. Again, these are efficient 30-minute formats, and we'll have Dr. Quay and Kyle and Heather speak throughout the event. And as you can see, the PowerPoint is already up. So please take it away, all of you. Thank you so much for joining again today.
Thank you very much, John. Let me start in with the first few slides here. Atossa is an SEC reporting company. We will be making forward-looking statements. Those are subject to our risks identified in our SEC filing. So please read our SEC reports before making an investment in Atossa. So Atossa is a clinical stage biopharma company focused on oncology and infectious disease. We have essentially 2 programs in breast health and 2 programs in COVID-19. Today, of course, we're going to focus on our breast cancer programs. And we'll be talking about the program that we recently announced phase 2 clinical data on in detail in the following slides. Slide 4 are our 4 most senior members of management. Despite our youthful appearances, we all have more than 2 decades of experience of both small pharma and larger pharmaceutical companies. I'll go on to slide 5 here. Just want to point out that we do not have any debt. Atossa is debt-free. We've engaged in a number of capital raising transactions up to the end of the last quarter, resulting in an unprecedented cash balance for Atossa of over $137 million. Our capitalization is also set out on this slide, so it's easy for people to discern. This is as of May 14th, and we're based in Seattle, Washington. So I like to mention that our programs are all addressing very large market opportunities. For example, on the COVID-19 side, it almost goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Every time I update this slide, I'm just astounded at the number of new COVID-19 cases that are reported. 174 million as of yesterday worldwide. Of course, many more cases that are never reported, and over 3.7 million deaths worldwide from COVID-19. On the breast cancer side, we're focused on women that are going in for the mammograms every year. There are close to 40 million mammograms done in the United States every year. And wholly 10 million of those will reveal high breast density. We are focused on ER-positive breast cancer as a type of breast cancer, and there are over 200,000 ER-positive breast cancers in the United States every year. 1 in 8 women will experience breast cancer in their lifetimes. Over 280,000 women will get breast cancer in the United States this year. That's a prediction by the American Cancer Society. That seems to be going up every year. And it's the second leading cause of cancer death among women. From here, why don't I turn it over to Dr. Quay.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Thank you, John, and thank you, Dr. Heather Fraser, who's going to be joining us soon. This is a busy slide, but I think the take home here is that we're looking at neoadjuvant treatments in this slide. So these are women who are getting treated with a pharmaceutical between literally the day that their diagnosis is made and then the time of definitive surgery or radiation. It's a 3 or 4 week to maybe 2 month period of time, but it's a critical period because you can shut down the tumor if you're effective. And you can also get a real strong prediction of what might happen in the after surgery phase, the adjuvant phase as it's called. And I think the real take home for investors and for me as a management person is the shape and the characteristic of this pie chart. So when you think of Roche or Roche and Genentech or AstraZeneca or Lilly, all of these really big oncology companies, all of the drugs they are developing are in breast cancers that are not ER positive. So they're in the little red piece of pie or the yellow or the green or the light blue. Atossa is addressing neoadjuvant for the large piece, that 78% of women who are ER positive. That is, their tumors require estrogen to grow. Endoxifen being the strongest anti-estrogen that's identified among a cadre of hundreds of chemicals. So while we're really glad for all the success Roche is having with their drugs and Lilly and those sorts of things, we are playing in a much larger space. Next slide, please. So, and we see endoxifen having a role across the entire spectrum. So what is seen here on this slide is we talk about the prevention setting, that is women who are very high risk of cancer, who don't have cancer. We want to think about that. I'll talk a little bit. Today, we're going to talk about that middle section, the neoadjuvant section. It's called the window of opportunity, the window being the time frame from diagnosis to treatment. And then, of course, after treatment, you want to prevent recurrences in the adjuvant phase, and that's 3 to 5 to even longer periods of time. We think endoxifen has a role in each one of these areas. So, as Kyle indicated, our program in measuring mammographic breast density, that is a really strong marker of whether you're impacting estrogen-dependent growth in the breast. And is a very nice tool to set you up for looking at perhaps preventing breast cancer in the future. Our focus today, again, will be in the neoadjuvant section. So if I could then go on to the next slide. Let's remind ourselves of what we know about endoxifen before we talk about what we just learned in the window of opportunity study being described today. So in phase 1 trials where we gave this to women at doses of 1, 2, and 5 milligrams per day. So those were the doses we determined would be likely to be successful. You see that very quickly, the x-axis on this is hours. So if you look at this chart, within 4, 5, or 6 hours of the first pill, you're getting very high levels of endoxifen in the bloodstream. And that's very gratifying because you're very quickly, you've got your diagnosis, and by the time you stop at the pharmacy and get home that night and take your first pill, we could imagine women actually getting a treatment effect out of this. Next slide, please. As you go on and get a steady state level after 3 weeks, about the time of surgery, you see these nice steady state levels here of, the units don't matter, but you see with 1 milligram, almost 40 units, 2 milligrams, 89, 4 milligrams, 187. The take home for this is the bars on the right there. Tamoxifen is not a drug that has any effect at all on cancer. It is a prodrug that has to be acted on by the liver. And women have sort of 3 kinds of genetics, 3 kinds of enzymes. They can be excellent metabolizers, or EM, they can be intermediate, or about 20% of women are poor metabolizers. They really get no benefit, almost no benefit out of tamoxifen. And that's what those arrows are to show you. So again, the take home here is that either 2 or 4 milligrams, we're getting levels that are above the best metabolizers of tamoxifen. We're probably taking endoxifen into some new levels where in the laboratory, it shows some very interesting new findings, new capabilities. Next slide. The other side of endoxifen, which is kind of remarkable to me, is still from a scientist's point of view, is the side effect profile. So with tamoxifen, there's a characteristic side effect of basically hot flashes. So you take a 35 to 50-year-old woman, she's not in menopause, 2 weeks into her tamoxifen, she's starting to have hot flashes, night sweats, and the like. In our phase 1 trial, as shown on the left panel, where you see placebo and you see the 3 doses, you really don't see any difference in the measurements of these endocrine symptoms. It's called the FACT-ES. It's a validated tool for measuring these vasomotor symptoms. On the right, we're reminded of where tamoxifen or the other class of drugs, aromatase inhibitors, so they start at maybe 60, and there's almost a 50% reduction. And the lower the FACT score, the worse. So we're really gratified at this point in time. It could change with larger populations, of course, but we are not seeing the typical side effects that can be troubling. They're not serious, but they're especially in a prevention setting, they could prevent compliance. So we like what we're seeing in terms of the ability to get into the bloodstream. We like what we're seeing preliminarily here in phase 1 with the endocrine side effects. So let's talk about tumor activity. Next slide, please. So Heather, why don't you take it from here, if you would?
Thanks, Steve. The WOO study was a phase 2 open label study of endoxifen in patients with invasive breast cancer. The study consisted of a 28-day screening window where a preoperative tumor biopsy was obtained. It was followed by a treatment period of at least 14 days of oral endoxifen between the time of diagnosis and the time of surgery, and that was followed by a second biopsy on the day of surgery. Women who were ER positive, HER2 negative, had invasive breast cancer requiring lumpectomy or mastectomy were selected. The primary endpoint was a reduction in Ki-67, which has been shown to have prognostic value for predicting overall survival in ER positive breast cancer. The secondary endpoints were safety and tolerability, estrogen and progesterone receptor expression, and correlation between endoxifen blood levels and the pharmacodynamic effect. Next slide, please. There were 7 women enrolled in this study, and with a mean age of 61 years. They were primarily white and not Hispanic or Latino, and took an average of 21 doses of Z-endoxifen, which at 14 days equated to 22.5 nanogram per mil in the blood. Next slide, please. So Ki-67 levels at screening were an average of 25.6%, and that had reduced by the day of surgery to 6%, which represented a 65% reduction from baseline. In addition, 6 of the 7 patients had a greater than 50% reduction in Ki-67, and all the patients had less than 25% expression at the time of surgery. A level that I mentioned previously is believed to be predictive of overall survival in ER breast cancer. There were a small numerical reduction in estrogen receptor staining and a small increase in progesterone receptor staining, and there was no clear correlation between Ki-67 and Z-endoxifen. Next slide, please. With respect to safety, overall, Z-endoxifen was well tolerated. There were a total of 6 adverse events that were reported in 3 of the 7 participants. All of those AEs were mild in severity and considered related to study drug. The AEs were 1 count of diarrhea, myalgia, dizziness, lethargy, vulvovaginal dryness, and hot flush. There were no abnormal laboratory findings, no differences in vital signs, physical exams, or ECGs, and no deaths, serious adverse events, or adverse events that lead to discontinuation. Next slide, please. So next steps with this program. We plan to conduct an advisory board meeting to discuss the Z-endoxifen development program with some key opinion leaders here in the US. We then plan to have a pre-IND meeting with the FDA regarding the program and complete our IND enabling tox program, generate the required clinical trial material, and submit an IND, and eventually, hopefully sooner than later, be able to receive that may proceed letter and all of the required IRB approvals and conduct the next study. Next slide. I'll turn it back to Kyle.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Fraser and Dr. Quay. From here, John, why don't we open it to questions from folks?
Okay, sounds great. Thank you all for presenting here. Exciting times for Atossa and exciting times for breast cancer patients to see this advance you're making in progress. Just a reminder, folks, as this question has come up several times here today, as many of you are new to the Tribe Public process, we will seek to get this video posted at the Tribe Public YouTube channel as soon as possible this week, and so you can view there and review the materials again, and/or push this on to friends that may not have been able to be on here. The first question here, and moving to that, is do we have any insight or whether or not, as to whether or not endoxifen has potential to reduce cell growth in other cancers, i.e. kidney, prostate, bladder, et cetera? That's probably Dr. Quay or Dr. Fraser.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate the question. So, as we know, we are currently doing an expanded access in a woman with ovarian cancer. And there is history of tamoxifen or related molecules having an effect in other reproductive organ cancers. There's also some intriguing studies around a role of estrogen receptor in melanoma. So we'll let the science lead us in these cases. I think if the Twitter version of this would be that we're really focused on breast cancer. We will be opportunistic in the two other areas of reproductive cancer, female reproductive cancers, and perhaps melanoma. I have not made any decisions along those lines, but I think that's probably where the activity will be limited.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Quay. The next question is, what is the main reason that Atossa had not published or presented their phase 2 data at the Endoxifen for Window opportunity at ASCO? Any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, John, I mean, it's a very simple question here. So the abstracts, the submissions to submit at these are required 4 to 6, 7 months ahead of the meeting. So we would have had to have the data literally in the late part of last year in order to submit for this year's meeting. So we are giving you the data as soon as the study report's been wrapped up in this format because it wasn't available at the time that those submissions had to be made.
Gotcha. Thank you. The next question is in regards to endoxifen. Is there a estimated timeline for endoxifen to be submitted for FDA approval if everything continues to go smoothly? Yeah,
John. I mean, important questions, and I understand why they're asked. But we're at the beginning of phase 2 trials, so we'll do the phase 2s, we'll complete them. They are informing what we'll do in phase 3, and then we'll have to do phase 3 style studies to submit for FDA approval. Looking at it orthogonally, there's 3 sections to the application for marketing approval. One is clinical trial data, one is non-clinical toxicology data, one is the manufacturing process. We've been working behind the scenes on manufacturing. We don't talk about that a lot, but we have we have daily conversations about manufacturing processes and proving to the FDA we can make it reproducibly and that it's stable in its various forms. We announced today that we're making major commitments of capital resources, drug supplies to complete the non-clinical toxicology section of our new drug application. So if you think about an application having 3 parts, I'm telling you, we're checking the box on 2 of those in this call today. And we'll obviously, when we get the results from these non-clinical studies that are necessary, we'll report those to you as well. And then the clinical section, of course, is the last to be completed, but it's very hard to make projections at this point in time. And I think we would be remiss to do so.
Okay, thank you. And you may not be able to answer this, but one of your sell side analysts that's following Atossa pushed this forward and sort of step out of turn on the questions. But this, the question is, can you shed some color on what maybe a phase 3 study may look like that the FDA is, or since the FDA is already familiar with tamoxifen and its outcomes? What might that look like, or how do you think that might play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, it's very hard to answer that. But I think one of the things that we have talked about in the past is that there's a pathway called 505(b)(2), which allows you to submit applications for metabolites of drugs that are already approved. And there are some special aspects of that package. You're allowed to reference the data with the primary drug. You're typically allowed to do 1 instead of 2 well-controlled clinical trials. And you typically get 7 years of market exclusivity independent of your patent situation. So it's a nice model. And we've publicly said that this is our target. We obviously have not had conversations with the FDA about all of the aspects of our programs qualifying for 505(b)(2), but I mean, I think that's how I would answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Quay. Switching gears a little bit on the balance sheet side of the equation here. One of the questions is, are there any plans to do a secondary offering? If so, would it make sense to explore partnering with a large biopharmaceutical company?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll address that by saying that, we don't really comment on capital raising activities. We like I mentioned earlier, though, we have completed a number of capital raising transactions recently and significantly shored up our cash balance. The cash that we have under our current business plan will take us out 4 years. And so we have quite a lot of capital for our current business activities. This additional cash, though, allows us to be opportunistic, to develop new programs, either for endoxifen or other drugs. And it allows us to negotiate more effectively with potential partners. The question about distributing the product and do you need this capital to attract a partner and such? I mean, I think the fact is that big pharma is very good at distributing approved products worldwide. Our markets are quite large that we're addressing, like I mentioned earlier, in breast cancer and COVID-19. I think a big pharma would be much better equipped to go address those markets and market our products. And so this capital that we have now is partially intended to get us to this next step of development, where we'll seek a partner to complete final clinical studies, and we'll seek a partner to ultimately distribute the product.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess you sort of answered this, but one of the questions was, where does the current capital on the balance sheet take you? Can you probably in relation to your current burn and development, where do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, our current cash takes us out 4 years. That's our SEC disclosure. So under, with our current business plan.
Okay. There's a number of other questions that come up. It seems like there's a lot of the tribe who's very interested in you partnering in some way, and the potential of that happening, that seems to be repeated. And with the current capital situation, one of the questions that's also coming up is this something that you would look to merge or buy out, acquire, all the above? How do you see your sort of the road going forward with this war chest of capital you have that takes you out 4 years?
John, if I could just step in from a CEO strategic point of view, but so yes, so you got your chips, you got your capital on one side of it, but you're playing poker with a potential partner there. What you need are cards. You need to know whether you have a 3 of a kind or a full house, and that's what the purpose of these phase 2 trials is, to give us the data that we can then sit down with a marketing partner, and we can say, okay, look at with this data and the competitive environment out there, what can you do in the market with this drug? And you go from there. So it's truly medical data driven, and it's just premature to talk about partnering before that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see if we've kind of covered a lot of these in the answers that expanded answers you've given here. There is a great deal of continued interest in the potential of being bought out, but that's not something you can really comment on. Let's see, as far as, let me scroll here, guys, we've got so many different questions that have rolled in here. Sorry, and I'll do my best to get these in front of you. I guess getting back to the science side of this, do we have any idea what the preferred dose do you think might play out here in relationship to BMI?
Body mass index, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Heather, if you'd like to talk a little bit about how we selected doses for this particular trial in Sweden, maybe that would help inform the folks.
Sure. So the Sweden study, we are selecting several doses to do a dose response so that we are able to actually inform on what is the most efficacious, as well as the least have the least side effects and have the best profile. So right now, that Swedish study hopefully will be getting off the ground this year, and will lead to those answers. You know, if you can expand on that, Steve.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I think we've informed people of what the doses are, but what we did in phase 1, as you saw, and I think I remind you of the slides we showed you, is we went to low doses that were below typically what you would get with endoxifen if you took tamoxifen, and then we went to some doses that give you a really high level where you're going to endoxifen levels that have never been seen before. Again, part of the reason of doing that was to look at tolerance in phase 1, where you have a lot of control over the safety of the folks. They're institutionalized in a phase 1 unit there. But there's evidence in the scientific literature, in the laboratory, and in the clinic that endoxifen has some very special properties at doses above what you can typically see with tamoxifen. So we know what tamoxifen does over 30 years, but some very smart people, including some of the Atossa scientists, have taken this to new levels, and they're seeing some exciting new things. So we wanted to see if we could capture that range in our phase 1 from a safety point of view to give us the flexibility going forward to explore some of those doses if the indication is appropriate. So we think we're very well positioned with the safety database we have in our human study in phase 1, with the database in the non-clinical studies we're developing to be an NDA, an approval enabling package, and then getting into the clinic in phase 2 and getting the data.
Okay, great. I think at this point, since we're reaching the 30-minute mark, which is what we promised here to everyone, I'd invite you to sort of wrap up any wrap-up comments if you might afford us, and then I'll wrap it up at the end here. So whoever'd like to take that, Dr. Quay, Heather, or Kyle.
Well, I'll just say, as CEO, we really appreciate the support we've had from our shareholders this year. Working in this COVID environment is unique from 60 different ways. So again, it's a privilege to be able to build this company and to manage it for your benefit and for the benefit of women with breast cancer. We're addressing some of the largest unmet needs in this space. We've been fortunate to develop a balance sheet that allows us to to be really strategic about the studies we do and about maybe the partners that we look at in the future. So the next 6 months, the next year, 2 years, it's gonna be very exciting for Atossa, and we're glad to have you along. Kyle, Heather, if you want to give some final comments, be great.
Yeah, I would just want to thank everybody for their support. The slide deck is available on our website if people would like to go back through it. We're very much looking forward to the next several quarters here as we continue to develop our program.
And I'll just say thank you to everybody, and we appreciate all of your continued interest.
Thank you. And again, I'll remind you that we will be getting the video up as soon as possible, either late today or certainly this week. at the Tribe Public channel, a YouTube channel. And so you could review and continue to view that or pass it on to other folks. Reminder that if you continue, now that you'll be receiving our Tribe This Week every Friday at 1:15 Pacific, 4:15 Eastern, which is our email newsletter, you will have the ongoing opportunity to resubmit your wish list for Atossa, Dr. Quay to come back on and management to address additional questions. If we didn't get some of those addressed today, I apologize, but we'll have other opportunities here to do so as they make progress to get them back on here. And the other reminder is that we have other companies on the platform, and any company that you particularly interested, you can submit your wish list to. A couple companies that you should definitely take a look at are Invo Bioscience, symbol INVO, and Immune Bio, who in Alzheimer's space, INNB. Reminder that Atossa trades under the symbol ATOS, and look forward to hearing from you. And thank you all, management team, for having taking the time today to help us better understand this important data that you released today. Look forward to exciting progress this year and beyond, and look forward to having you back on soon. Thanks all. Have a great rest of your week, and good luck investing out there all. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.